Welcome back to the Expat Files. Tane Nix here. For nearly a quarter century, I've managed to live like a king in Latin America. The thing is, I did this long before I made any kind of serious money. In this video, I'm going to show you how, using a set of simple principles that I follow in 5 easy steps so you can do the same. I had a driver, a full-time guardian, a manservant, right, who took care of my affairs, especially when I'm out of the country and need the house looked after. A full-time gardener, a maid, a nanny for my son, and even private help for computer projects or high-level medical translation when I was working in medicine. Here's my point. I had all of these things long before I made my first $1 million or any serious money, what might be considered the kind of level of wealth that would allow you to do this. The point is, you can't do this in certain parts of the world, but you can in Latin America, especially if you know how to set yourself up correctly, and you can do it in such a way that makes you a valuable asset to the people and the community where you live. And here's a finer point. The reason I set my life up this way was for 2 reasons. First, because it makes infinite financial sense to pay other people to do the tasks that you yourself would otherwise have to do, but that are well below your dollar per hour kind of value. When you're trying to build a business, especially, if I can pay somebody $5 to wash my dishes and clean up the house, or run errands and pick up my groceries, or drive me to the airport. In this case, I actually get work done to and from the airport, which is about a 3-hour drive from where I'm sitting right now. Why would I do that myself? Why would I own a vehicle? Why would I take care of any of this? If I could pay a chauffeur to handle that responsibility for me, it's not like it costs hundreds of dollars down here. That's the kind of task that somebody else can do much easier than I can and make my life that much more efficient. So here are the 5 simple principles that I follow, that I encourage other people, especially if you're interested in, want to have not just an international lifestyle, but a successful international lifestyle. And what I mean by that is that you become an asset to the community wherever you settle. So here, for example, I'm in my place in Central America on Lake Atitlan. I first arrived here in March of 1999. So that's 26 years ago as I'm filming this, 26 years and change. And over that time, I've just had an incredible relationship with a lot of the folks in the Pueblo. It's very tiny. It's about 2,500 people, maybe at any given time, maybe a few hundred expats. And but very beautiful. Obviously, I get to live deep, deep in nature. I'm about a mile from the lakefront up the mountainside in just a fantastic location, wildlife and all kinds of beauty and flowers and food growing around me. So really, really rich experience that I get to enjoy here. If you think offshore structures like where to bank, how to invest in foreign real estate, and where to set up your foreign trust are difficult or complicated, they're not. That's not the hard part of creating an international lifestyle. The hardest part is the decision to go. That's why I wrote Secrets of the Expat Adventure, to share with you a deeply personal view of what happens when you decide to cast off the chains of a normal life full of predictable outcomes. I don't want to spoil the ending for you, but you quickly discover yourself living your best life, the life you were meant to live, instead of the one you're stuck with. Across 156 pages, I'll share the incredible adventure I've enjoyed because of my decision to leave my old life behind and create an international lifestyle. I lay out for you the consequences of remaining in a life or location where everything is familiar, contrasting that with the almost magical growth and gain that is possible once you decide to take the path of adventure. There's something deeply mysterious about choosing an adventurous life. Once you commit, helpers appear, and events seem to unfold in an almost magically choreographed manner. You find yourself learning, living, and loving your life in a way that you thought you'd lost forever. There is no financial gain that compares with the recovery of the best parts of yourself. Fortunately, the decision to internationalize is also a great way to get wealthy. I give you real examples of how much easier it was for me to find and profit from the real estate and other investment opportunities I came across simply by choosing to play on the very uneven playing field of developing markets. If you're worried about what's happening in your home country and you're on the fence about whether or not you should create your own plan B, Secrets of the Expat Adventure will give you clarity and inspiration to choose your own path of freedom and adventure. I promise you'll never look at your life the same way again once you discover what an international lifestyle can do for you, your family, and your wealth. To get your copy, click the link below this video. If you follow the principles that I share with you, you not only get to have the kind of lifestyle that other people will be envious of, because quite frankly, this lifestyle that I leave here would cost several $1 million easily. To get a place is remote, in a remote part of North America, and have servants taking care of your affairs so that I can concentrate on the things that matter to me, like producing videos like this and writing books and coming up with important material that I want to share with people, would cost many, many, if you could find it at all. If you could find people to do those jobs in, say, the US or Canada, it would be very, very cost prohibitive, let's say. And so the point about living in a place like Latin America, like here in very poor kind of part of Guatemala, is that you can have the kind of lifestyle that you want. But it is not the case that people who come with tons of money and isolate themselves from the community actually enjoy the kind of reception and warmth and interaction with the locals like I've had over the course of the last century. And the reason for that is very simple. So let me run through the 5 principles that I followed that allowed me to make a lot of money while I was down here, and probably make a great exit as we're getting ready to sell this property, and also endear myself to a certain segment in the Pueblo and to be a valuable asset in the community so that I feel a warm welcome each and every time I return. Number 1, this has to do really with investment implications. Get in early. Right? The way that you make a ton of money in a developing economy like in Guatemala, where things have done nothing but improve of every single year that I've returned in the last 26 years, conditions are dramatically better. Now, what this implies is that, number 1, you find or look for a place, or that, quite frankly, it's not very difficult to find a lot of places that are like coiled springs. Guatemala came out of a very serious civil war, as if there's any other kind. In 1996, the peace accords were signed. People right here in this Pueblo and all around the lake were killed, conscripted, basically shanghaied by the army, and then enlisted to go murder other people in other villages. It was a really, really tough, dark time across the lake in Santiago. There was a very famous murder of a priest there, a U.S. priest who was looking after the folks of Santiago and stood up to the government and to the rebels and was killed inside the church. There's a monument over there, and the story is well known. And so this was a very, very it was a dark place. It was a very dark time for the Guatemalans. But, I was in El Salvador last year. That's a coiled spring. Obviously, Argentina seeing a real rebound. That's a coiled spring. Colombia came out of a really tough time in the 1990s. That was a coiled spring if you got in there early. Any of these places where things go from being horrendously bad to slightly less bad to actually pretty good to, oh my goodness, look at this, 2.5 decades later, the changes and the prosperity, the commerce that has now is very conspicuous from Guatemala City all the way to the lake, the old capital of Antigua. It's a very pleasant place, and the prosperity is tremendous. It's dramatic. It's really head-turning. When I first got here, there wasn't even a highway between the city and the lake. It was basically a 2-lane road, right? It was a disaster, and sometimes mudslides and rocks would cover the highway, cover the little 2-lane road, and then you're stuck. And so it was many years before that even happened. It's only in the last, say, 10 years that really development has really taken hold and that things have really improved. The development is almost out of control. I mean, there's people building 3- and 4-story hotels down on the lakefront. And so the character of the place changes, but this is partly inevitable. And the point is, if you get in here, this property, I will probably make close to 100 times my original investment. So what that means is I get paid to have lived here, but also that I had just an unbelievable lifestyle for a quarter of a century for an amount of money that most people would like you wouldn't even miss it, right? If you had to pay the kind of money that I paid for this place, and I didn't pay for it all myself. I had a sweetheart who helped me also build this place, and so hat tip to her. If I told you what it cost me to put all of this together, it would be like maybe, an addition onto your taxes of, say, 4 figures from 1 year. Like, you wouldn't miss it if you had to come up with this in order to have a lifestyle like mine for the last quarter century. It's absolute chump change to have been able to do this. Why? Because I got in early. Principle number 2, I said, find places on the way up. You want to see a solid uptrend, right? Now, the good news is there's solid uptrends all over Latin America right now. This is why I'm so high on the Americas. Obviously, not only are you far from the kind of madness that's unfolding in the Middle East and that unpleasantness, but also the nonsense that looks like Europe's going to have another bloodbath because they just can't get enough of war. And Asia, okay, but if you're not Asian, right, you're never going to be accepted there as a kind of local. There's at least potentially problems, right, being like me, like Western European heritage from North America, living in a place like, I don't know, Vietnam, Thailand, right? You are not from there. You are obviously an outsider. that becomes a problem, then it's a problem. If it doesn't, then wonderful. It means the world, avoided the worst of what is possibly to come. But if there is real violence and people turn against each other, like, do you want to be an outsider in a place like that? In Latin America, it is different. There's enough homogeneity, right? There's certainly enough North Americans living in and throughout and taking extended stays in places like Latin America. You're not going to be considered an outsider and rejected as such, if you also do some of the other things I'm going to tell you in the rest of the principles. So even starting from a really low base, you can do tremendously well. It's better than being stuck in a culture that's on the way down. There's a lot of markers and there's a lot of just objective evidence that things have topped out in a lot of the so-called first world name brand countries, like the US, like Canada, like Western Europe. How much better could it get? Right? Yes, certain people will continue to do well there. Certainly if you're an asset holder and you got a lot of, you benefited from all the money printing, you've probably done well. That's great. But, how much does your wealth really matter to you if violence erupts, in major areas, or especially urban areas around the country? That could get unpleasant very, very quickly. So even a place like this is one of the poorest places in Central America, one of the poorest places in the Americas. Over the last quarter century, it has done nothing but improve. The improvements it's not like everybody benefits from them, but if you're a local and you work hard and you pull yourself up, things have consistently gotten better for the people that I know and that I'm associated with and that I work with and who work with me and take care of my affairs down here. And so, seeing people do better is very heartwarming. My point to you is that if you're in a place that's even as depressed and beat up and beat down and as sort of tough as things were here, I knew that this place was on an uptrend. And so, time is your friend in that case. If you're in the US and things are coming apart at the seams, time is not your friend in that scenario. So number one, get in early. Number two, look for places on the way up and establish yourself. Number three, if you're worried about the financial and monetary systems, geopolitical tensions, central bank triggering runaway inflation, and what all the above will do to your wealth, well, you should be. The question isn't whether or not you should own gold. The real question is, do you have enough? It doesn't really matter what happens with Bitcoin, interest rates, spiraling debt costs, or any other variable in our increasingly chaotic world. Why? Because the solution to all those risks is the same, and because central banks from Beijing to Moscow, Singapore to Switzerland, are all telling you what their answer will be when the wheels come off. It's gold, dummy. That's why I use the all-in-one dealer and vaulting service SWP Cayman. Why? Because you can buy and sell right from your online dashboard, and SWP protects you from any risk of government confiscation or capital controls. They offer vaulting services in Grand Cayman and half a dozen other jurisdictions all around the world. It's convenient, it's fast, and it lets you move a big chunk of your legacy wealth outside the financial system quickly, while still allowing you to sell and move funds anywhere in the world when the time comes. To get set up with an account at SWP, go to swpcayman.com/ChristianNix. That's www.swpcayman.com/Christian-NIX. These are not necessarily in order, but number three is make an exit when you see a peak. I could have gotten out here at several points. I decided to keep the property. It's valuable enough to me. There was nobody who was going to pay me what this place was worth because it was so valuable to me to have a little retreat where I could come back. There was years that I spent 4 and 5 months here, even while I was building my business. I would come here over the winter, especially when I lived in Chicago. I would come here to get out of the cold weather and spend time and hang out in nature and get my head together and work on my next book and prepare my next class and go back to the US and go back to North America where I was traveling across the continent, teaching doctors and giving lectures. And I would come back with a ton of energy and vision and refreshed and ready to do battle for another season. So there is no way that I could have done those things without having a base like this. Obviously, I could have made an exit even 10 years ago. It might have made sense to do that. I held on to it because of the value that this place gave me. But now we're coming to what I consider to be another peak. Probably somebody who made money in, Bitcoin or whatnot will make an offer for this place. It's so far out of the way, and it's such a unique experience being up here. It's probably going to be a unique person who wants to have a hideout like this one, like the one I've put together. I'll just give you a quick tour by turning the camera around. I don't have windows on I just have bars on the windows, which is why I need somebody up here for security reasons. There's a dance floor over there. You can't see it, but this is my garden. If you could see through the trees, you'd see the volcanoes. Obviously, you cannot see that from this vantage, but I can from my upper bedroom. I got food in the garden. In any case, when I'm eating breakfast here in this little alcove, very often the hummingbirds come in and hover above my head and whatnot. So it's a unique situation, and nonetheless, if I decide to make an exit, it's very likely that I'm going to make a ton of money on this place, which is great, right? If you get paid to live in a place, well, that's certainly better than having a carry cost and end up losing a ton of money. And so there is a time to get out. Make an exit when you see a peak, get your money back, go find another, green pasture, which is exactly what I'm preparing to do, and take the experience, take the capital that you've deployed and then gotten back, in my case, multiplied many, many times over, and go deploy it somewhere else and have another experience and grow that. And this brings me to number 4, and I already alluded to this. Make yourself loved by the locals. I call this the Lord Jim effect. But look, this is not about manipulation. This is not about coercion. I'm not saying be loved by, hurling cash around. That usually causes problems, because then people think that, they come to you. I get asked for money all the time, and I'm very judicious about who I will and won't help and what conditions I will and won't accept, for offering people any kind of support. Most of it's pretty nominal stuff, but occasionally, somebody comes up and asks and gives you a whole story about why they need a bunch of money. And so you have to be careful about that. I'm not talking about, being known as somebody who's very free with their money, and that you can sort of buy loyalty or buy affection from local people like that. That's a very two-edged thing. I don't recommend that, actually. I recommend keeping that really under wraps. And if you do help people, you should help a sort of inner circle that that you have some control over what they're up to, and they're not going to go drink it up, or you'll see them dead drunk in the gutter, with the money that you gave them, or committing crimes or things like this, which is not that uncommon down here. So I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about being a stand-up person, a stand-up guy or gal who's known for helping the folks around, because chances are you can help. The skills that you have, if you're from North America or Europe, are going to greatly surpass almost anything that the people down here, especially in poor and developing parts of Latin America, have, just by virtue of where you grew up, just by virtue of the education that you've received. There's probably something you could do to help. My thing was medicine. I volunteered in the hospital across the way for almost 10 full years, and taught doctors down here and had students come shadow me, and became known as somebody who was also, cared about what happened to the local people here. Maybe the thing I'm most proud of, from my time here in Guatemala, because it made such a difference also in my life. And you get a chance to see, I'm sentimental in this way, seeing the difficulties of the people here, seeing the hardness of life, seeing the incredible tragedy that is poverty, the grinding oppression of being poor day after day, and how well the people bear it, and seeing my friends and going down. I go to church, and I tend not to go to church most anywhere else, but here I go to church because I like the feeling of being in that ceremony with these people for whom life is truly difficult. The feeling of being uplifted by seeing how they face it and how they treat one another, and how difficult things are, but how hopeful and upbeat and uplifted they are to come together as a community and to celebrate and worship according to their faith, is genuinely, genuinely pleasant. It's a pleasure for me to see it and to be part of that, and to be seen also down there. There's very few, obviously there's not a whole lot of expats or foreigners who go to church with the local people, but I enjoy it. I like seeing and being part of that part of their community. For me, it's a genuine experience when I'm down there. It doesn't take that much to make an impact. You can have tremendous impact on other people. My friend who passed away, his daughter went on to nursing school. I played a very, very small part in that, but I made sure that they had what they needed so that she could go to nursing school and complete nursing school. That kind of thing is, if I said what it cost me in monetary terms, it's a pittance. It was nothing for me to do it, but I made sure that also it was very important to me that their family pulled her through that, that it meant something to them, that they could have the pride of having done that. And so I backstopped them, but I also made sure that, look, let's not have her, fail out because of financial reasons. Let's make sure if she wants to get through this, that she can do it. In any case, it takes very little to have that kind of impact on people. And that's a kind of generational thing. I mean, that's something that could change the course of that family's entire historical kind of trajectory. It cost me nothing, almost nothing, next to nothing to do that. Most people in North America could afford to have that kind of impact. But the main thing is finding the good people that you could support in that kind of capacity. And that takes actual outreach. I mean, that takes actual integration into the community. That requires you to learn some Spanish. That means that you have to actually be around and meet the people at a deep enough level that you could find an opportunity to do something like that. I encourage people to do that. My thing is, if you're going to live as an expat, you're much better off being integrated into the community, and obviously the richness that it gives you to be thought of as a valuable person and an asset and somebody from outside who kind of cares about the local people. You know, you can call it sentimentality if you want, but in reality, I mean, there's a richness and a reward for doing that that goes way beyond any of the costs that you incur by being that person. It's not all about financial support, obviously. Number 5, and this is the point of the entire video, make it about your growth. Make it about your experience. Look, can you get wealthy playing on the uneven playing field of a developed economy? Yes, you can. It's not hard, actually, because there's so many opportunities. And again, most of the places in Latin America are on the way up. I haven't been to Brazil. I'll get to Brazil probably later this year or early next year. I know people investing in Brazil. You know, the political situation there is a little, right, like most of these places. It could go either direction, but Argentina, Colombia, right, we've already covered some of the major ones. You know, Mexico is doing well, you know, year after year. Like, you do see improvement here in Guatemala, El Salvador, Nicaragua. These places are doing so well year after year. The prosperity that's coming and that's happening is tremendous. So can you do well financially? Yes, you can. Can you have the experience of your lifetime? That's the question that I ask. That's my focus and has been my focus both personally and in this video and all the material and videos that I create, which is, look, you can go offshore. You can protect yourself from your home government. You can insulate your wealth from the chaos to come. You can give yourself and your family a safe place to go if the wheels come off and violence erupts, say in the U.S. or you know, North America, where things really get dicey. All of those things are important, but the most important thing of all is you can have the adventure of your life by creating a global lifestyle. I think that, although it's probably not spoken about openly, that this is the deepest desire of most of the people that I talk to and most of the people that I meet who are sort of dipping their toe into the water to see what it's like to live an international kind of lifestyle, is that you can create a life that is better than the one that you have. You can live a fuller life. You can have experiences that you cannot have inside your own culture. And you can do it for a lot less money than you think, and you can have all these other benefits thrown in on top. And so, to me, the expat thing and the global lifestyle has been about having the best version of my life. And I can say, right, now that I'm in my mid-50s, I can look back at a little bit, in the last quarter century at least, and say that I have, in fact, lived a much, much better life than, and I get this from other people. I talk to people, I have a couple mates from high school, college, whatever, and I get complimented all the time that I had the courage to go live this kind of lifestyle. And so I know that it's real. I know people who, you know, went to offices in New York and Chicago, and they're very flattering, right, talking about the kinds of things that I've been able to do. You know, most of them did very well and made a ton of money, but you know, they did not have the kind of adventure and experience and growth and kind of the broad understanding of the world and what's happening and all of the various things that I've gained by living an international lifestyle. So get in early, look for places on the way up, make an exit when you see a peak. Make yourself appreciated by the people by being helpful, by being genuinely helpful. It enriches your own experience. It also secures you and your family if you're thought of as valuable, and there's backlash against other foreigners and expats living in a place, and you're thought of as the one person who's not part of that group, even though you, right, ostensibly are also an outsider. Well, that's valuable. I mean, it's also about your own security. Obviously, if you are valuable to other people, they're going to appreciate that and make sure that you're also, you know, not lumped in with sort of the sort of asshole crowd, right, that comes down to take advantage in whatever way they can, right, of living in a poor, depressed place and flaunting money, et cetera, et cetera. And the main point of all of this and the summary of everything that I've put in all of my materials is you can have a better version of your life. The best version of your life is possible with a little bit of planning, a little bit of forethought. And if you want my help on this, I put together all kinds of resources for you. Number one is a short primer, my Bulletproof Plan B. Whatever plan B you create to live an international lifestyle, it's going to involve certain basic fundamental pillars. I call them the 4 pillars. That primer, you can find that in a link below this video. Get a hold of that. You can read it in about an hour, and it will give you very clear kind of understanding of what you need to do in order to cover your bases for your physical safety and your financial security through whatever chaos is yet to come in the changing world order. Number 2, I just released another book. It's about my journey. I think for some people it might be inspirational. Talk about my motivations and sort of what I had to do across the last 25 plus years, and the various things that I had to deal with coming back to the U.S. and a kind of culture shock that I went through. I lived on a boat out in San Francisco Bay Area, attending grad school when I was teaching doctors and traveling across the country, and what it took for me to actually get the basics and the basis for the life that I have now. You might find it interesting. It's certainly an adventure story, that's for sure. And that's called Secrets of the Expat Adventure. The point of that book is, look, setting up international structures and financial protection for your wealth and trusts and bank accounts and all the rest, that's the easy part. Getting passports and all, that's the easy part. That is not difficult. People make that, I think, into something that is probably more complex than it needs to be. In other words, it's not difficult. Don't overcomplicate it. If you want help, I'm here to help. That's exactly what I do. Share my experiences and point you in the right direction. But the real trick, I think, and the big stumbling block for most people is just simply the decision to go or not go. If you convince yourself that it's too complicated, then you won't go, right? But the benefits of actually having the courage to go live an international lifestyle far, far, far outweigh and surpass any kind of the aggravation or cost. Setting up international structures and getting travel documents and residency permits is easy. The hard part is the decision to go. And I wrote Secrets of the Expat Adventure to try to convince you that your best life is ahead of you. Your best life consists of diversifying yourself, not just financially, not just geopolitically, but giving yourself the permission and finding the right skills in the right places to go have the adventures like I've had in the last 25 plus years, so that you look back on your life, the kind of age that I'm getting to now, and you look and you see, goodness, what a life I've had. Like, what an unbelievable tale I have to tell. In the end, that is all you get to take with you. You know, in the end, in the last analysis, all you get to take in your last breath is the satisfaction that you gained or failed to achieve about the life that you lived. And to me, it's worth it to aim high and to have a life that was worth living. That's my goal for all of you. And so for that as well, if you'd like to speak to me personally, I give you a way to do that. There's a link below this video. You can set up a free 15-minute call. Tell me about your situation. If I decide that we're a good fit and you want to work with us, I have a legal firm that I've teamed up with, American-based, US-based law firm that is well qualified. Not just the most competent group of people doing this that I've discovered in all my time living and helping people go international, but also these people are my friends, right? These people really know their stuff. I travel with them, I meet up with them in various parts of the world, and they stay on top of the various changing laws in all the different countries where we create structures and help you diversify yourself and your financial situation internationally. So you can get in touch with me there. That's enough out of me. Thanks very much. And remember, the best way to protect yourself from the coming chaos is simply to create an international lifestyle. International diversification is freedom insurance. The best way to avoid trouble is to get out of town. Thanks. I'll be back with more good stuff.